Okay, well, thank you very much. And tonight is the May 27th, 2020 City of Edina Planning Commission meeting. We're conducting it virtually because of the COVID-19 crisis affecting the world. We're complying with the governor's stay-at-home order. And all members of the Planning Commission, all staff, all presenters are participating from their home or another remote location so that we can all be safe. Before we begin, obviously I'm already started. I'm just covering a few basic kind of unique ground rules. One of the things we want to be clear is, despite these lack of in-person meetings, the city is working very hard to collect feedback from citizens. And actually, I think we're doing a great job. Citizens can go to the Planning Commission website, and there's a form you can fill out and submit. Voicemails are being left for staff, and the staff's forwarding all these emails whatever emails they get or whatever voicemails they get, they're promptly forwarding them to all members of the Planning Commission. And so it's been a great feedback mechanism. Also, luckily, I guess, thinking about it, about 6 months ago, in response to comments about communication that were received during the comprehensive plan process, the city instituted an online program called Better Together, which is at www.bettertogetheredina.com, if I remember correctly. Anyway, where is it? bettertogetheredina.org. And we're getting a lot of good feedback from bettertogether.org. And so we're just getting feedback from a lot of different sources, so we can ensure that even though we're all working remotely, that we're enabling citizen participation. Tonight we in public hearing, if I believe, and yes, we have one public hearing. And if you want to provide testimony for tonight's public hearing, you can call in and do that. The number to call in, I'm going to give it to you now if you want to write it down. It's 1-800-374-0221, conference ID 8968709, and then press 1 if you want to speak. Because of delays we're all used to in these kind of telephonic processes, we'll wait a little bit. We're not just gonna. We'll wait to let calls load, and if it appears to be we don't have any more calls, we'll still wait another moment after that, just to make sure that there's not any kind of time lag preventing people from participating. And perhaps another important thing to say is all feedback is weighed equally. If you do wish to participate by phone, though, and you provided comments by Better Together, by voicemail, or by email before the meeting, you don't feel like you have to call in and just repeat the comments that you've already shared. We look at them, and if you do call in, we will give you 3 minutes, and we ask, if you can, to not repeat comments made by previous callers. Try to provide us with the unique comments instead of just repeating the person that came 2 people before you. I guess that's it. So thanks in advance for your patience as we work through this. We've made a lot of progress in the 2 months we've been doing this. I think this was the 4th Planning Commission meeting conducted that way, and I appreciate everyone. It's just been as good a process as could be. That said, now we've called the meeting to order. I'll turn it over to the staff member, Liz Olson, to call roll.
Thank you, Chair Nemerov. I will call all planning commissioners' names, regardless of who I can or cannot see on WebEx, to ensure accuracy. Commissioner Douglas.
Present.
Commissioner Agnew.
Present.
Commissioner Bennett.
Here.
Commissioner Olson. Commissioner Bellavulli. Commissioner Strauss.
Here.
Commissioner Thorson. Commissioner Berube.
Here.
Commissioner Miranda, Chair Nemerov.
Here. Thank you, Liz. So that takes us to, then we've sent out a meeting agenda. There's one change to the meeting agenda. We were going to have a second public hearing regarding a subdivision with variances at 59th and Abbott Avenue South. And that has been tabled until our next meeting in June. I believe that's June 10th. Yeah, we're continuing that, not tabled, but continued is the proper language. With that said, with that change, does anyone else have any changes to the agenda, or do we have a motion to approve it?
I move to approve the agenda.
I
Is there a
second.
Liz, could you call a roll, please?
Commissioner Douglas.
Aye.
Commissioner Agnew.
Aye.
Commissioner Bennett.
Aye.
Commissioner Olson. Commissioner Strauss.
Aye.
Commissioner Berube.
Aye.
Chair Nemerov.
Aye. Commissioner Olson, can you hear us? Sorry to call on you, Joanne. I don't know if we can hear you. Okay, well, we work on that. Technical issues. Joanne works on that. Next we go to, we have the next item on the agenda is meeting minutes. We've been provided meeting minutes from our April 29th and May 13th meetings. Does anyone have any comments to those?
This is Commissioner Agnew. We had wanted something added to the April 29th meeting minutes. So were those updated?
I saw a change. Liz, do you want to address that? Do you want to discuss how the change was made? Or Carrie or staff?
Yes, we added that comments on Better Together and on voicemails were also equally considered for testimony for public hearings. And we will continue to use that format on future meeting minutes to be consistent during WebEx meetings for Planning Commission meetings.
Comments or questions regarding the minutes? Kate, did you have more?
No, I was going to move to approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion a second. Liz, could you do, for everyone watching, we have to do a roll vote for everything. We just can't do it by acclamation. So Liz, could you do a roll vote, please?
Thank you, Chair Nemerov. Commissioner Douglas.
Aye.
Commissioner Agnew.
Aye.
Commissioner Bennett.
Aye.
Chair Olson.
Aye.
Commissioner Strauss.
Aye.
Commissioner Berube. Chair Nemerov.
Aye. Thanks, Liz. Well, and that takes us right into the public hearings. As I mentioned, we continued one public hearing. So we only have one public hearing tonight, and that is a comprehensive plan amendment and preliminary rezoning.
Commissioner Nemerov. Pardon my interruption. We have 2 minutes, 2 meeting minutes that need approval on the agenda.
I thought that was for both, but sure. Could we get a motion for the May 13th meeting minutes also? Unless anyone has any questions?
I move to approve the meeting minutes for May 13th.
I second that.
Liz, could you do a roll vote for the approval of the May 13th minutes, please?
Thank you. Commissioner Douglas.
Aye.
Commissioner Agnew.
Aye.
Commissioner Bennett.
Aye.
Commissioner Olson.
Aye.
Commissioner Strauss.
Aye.
Commissioner Berube.
Aye.
Chair Nemerov.
Aye. Okay, now we'll go to the one public hearing, and that's the comprehensive plan amendment and preliminary rezoning for the corner of Hankerson Avenue and 52nd Street West for Donne Homes. I believe Carrie planning director, community development director, you are presenting for the city, is that correct?
I am, that's correct. Could I ask that you do a formal motion to continue the public hearing for that previous subdivision to June 10th? That is
Sure.
for the 5928 Abbott Avenue South. And just to give a quick introduction on that, the city engineer highlighted some grading and drainage issues that they need to work through with the applicant before they proceed. So those will take place over the next couple of weeks. And we would just ask that you continue that one to your June 10th meeting.
Okay, is there a motion or any discussion or motion?
Move to table the 5928 Abbott.
Second.
So we have a motion to continue it. Liz, could you do a roll vote for that, please?
Thank you. Commissioner Douglas?
Aye.
Commissioner Agnew?
Aye.
Commissioner Bennett?
Aye.
Commissioner Olson?
Aye.
Commissioner Strauss?
Aye.
Commissioner Berube?
Aye.
Chair Nemrov?
Aye. And now, I want to get to this one. Obviously, I mean, it's really exciting.
Yeah, thanks.
Carrie,
For that.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, thanks for doing that. Sorry to interrupt.
No, it's fine. It's good. We got to do it. And you're ready to roll. There you go.
And I opened the, let's try this again. There we go. Okay, so this, our public hearing this evening is for a site that you're all familiar with. It's a comprehensive plan amendment and a rezoning at a property at 52nd and Hankerson. So the commission may recall this property was considered a couple of months ago by the Planning Commission, and it went to the City Council as a 10-unit townhome project. And the council didn't take action on it. They were suggesting that 10 units was too many and that 8 units was, they may consider something like that. So in doing that, it changes the request from a high density project to medium density. So it is back in front of you now for a second time. So the site is currently guided in our comprehensive plan for low density attached residential, which allows between 4 and 8 units an acre. There's a single family home on the site and a 4-unit apartment building shown on the screen. There's a look at the apartment building. Right on the edge of the Grandview district, there was, as you recall, there was quite a bit of discussion about the potential for the road 52nd connecting through to Vernon. I think the Planning Commission and the City Council were pretty clear that that a vehicular connection's probably not appropriate at this time, but potentially a pedestrian connection to Grandview in the future. There's no specifics surrounding either one of those tonight, but just wanted to highlight that. So this is a look at the previous proposal. Again, it was for 10 units on the site, and the applicant has revised it to 8. They've separated the 2 buildings into 2 4-unit buildings to create more green space. And one issue that came up for the City Council was the preservation of some pine trees along the south property line. So the applicant has located the buildings to preserve those trees. So as I mentioned, the revisions changed the previous request from a high density designation in the comp plan to a medium density designation. Still does require a comprehensive plan amendment. So quickly, here is a look at the 2 buildings. You can see the separation in the middle. So the request requires that comp plan amendment to medium density and a rezoning to PUD. That was also brought up at the City Council rather than the variances do a planned unit development here on the site. So the way the comprehensive plan amendment would look, again, on the left, this is the existing comp plan. low-density attached residential. And the new guiding would be for medium density. Here's a look at the site plan. The setbacks are essentially the same as proposed earlier. There was a 12-foot setback to the north property line, 21 feet to the alley, and 35 feet to Hankerson. The difference here is this 32-foot setback to 52nd, again, for the purpose of preserving the trees to the south. So primary issues for consideration here is the comp plan regarding the density reasonable, and is the rezoning reasonable. So as the previous recommendation from staff and the Planning Commission was for approval. So staff does support the comp plan amendment for essentially many of the same reasons. Townhomes tend to be clustered close to more busy roadways, close to Vernon. They serve as a buffer for adjacent single-family homes. It's integration of multi-unit housing into transitional areas as depicted on the picture. Designing the buildings to have that single-family characteristics with a pitched roof. Providing the parking at the rear of the building. You may recall that when they came through at sketch plan, the accesses were off of Hankerson. They flipped that to the rear to hide the parking. The housing does provide a type of a townhome that we haven't seen a lot of development over the past 20 years or so. It could be considered that missing middle housing. Again, it provides that transition from the commercial district into the single family area to the north and west. There are duplexes straight to the west. And again, the density falls within the medium density range. And we also believe that the PUD is reasonable. Again, it provides for that unique style of housing within the comp plan, that missing middle. And again, provides that transition from the commercial area to the west. So through the PUD, the only development that could be built on this site is the proposal before you this evening. With the traditional zoning, it doesn't hold to a specific building type. It would just simply have rezoned it. So with the PUD, the actual proposal this evening gets built right into a city code or a chapter of the code. So with that, staff is recommending approval of the comprehensive plan amendment and the rezoning to PUD subject to the findings and conditions that are outlined in your staff report. And with that, I will stop there and answer any questions.
Carrie, do any commissioners have, Jerry, I see you. Please start, Jerry.
Okay. Thank you. Carrie, when you referenced this was before the city council, they did not make any decisions. Is it yours or staff's opinion that what the development did reacting to the planning meeting previously to that, that the changes, reflect the comments that the planning commission and the comments that the city council have, and you believe that this plan sort of has addressed those issues?
I do. Whether it meets every one of the comments that we've heard, probably not, but I think they've really done a good job to try to address them as best they can. Preserving those trees to the south, creating some more green space, and reducing the number of units. So yeah, I believe they've made some nice improvements here to the plans.
My remembering that, I mean, the density seemed to be, what sort of most enraged or was the biggest problem, and that seems to be addressed. In 8 units seems to be practical and feels right. So yeah, I think that was a big change and a big movement. And I had that, maybe I had the sense that before they felt, we needed 10 and that was it. Obviously they moved. And yeah, thank you. Yeah,
I think you're right. I think that was the biggest issue for the city council was the 10 units. Ryan, you're on mute.
Jerry. Thank you, Jerry. Also, I was saying, do other commissioners have questions? I'm trying to maximize my Brady Bunch screen. I have a question, but we'll leave it. Jerry, Carrie, following up on Jerry's question, did the city council excuse me, back up. This design also splits the property into two buildings. Before it was like one big building. Was that in response to city council feedback also?
It was, yes.
Anyone else have questions? Further questions? All right. Well, let me bring on the applicant. We've met them with the rep. Was it Mr. Benke for Donne Homes speaking tonight?
Yes.
Well, welcome.
Oh, Steve, we're not hearing you. Sometimes just taking off the headsets work. No.
No, not yet.
Steve, try now. No. No.
If you connected via the computer, you might also try just using your phone to dial in for the audio portion.
So what would that be? Would that be 1-800-374-0?
No.
No.
No, Ian, the private WebEx phone number that's
Okay.
in the invite.
Okay, Steve, do you have that? Hello.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you. Appreciate the patience.
Welcome.
Yeah, basically, thank you very much. Yeah, we are bringing the project back before you again because we did take another look at it. I think I wanted to really touch on the fact that I think all the way through, we've really listened to the feedback we've gotten from both City Council and Planning Commission. And I really feel like while it took some work on our part and on the owner's part, I do think that the project that we have here will be a success for the city of Edina. I'm going to go ahead and, is my screen visible?
No, not yet.
Okay, try it again here.
If I could ask anyone who could everyone else just put your phones on your microphone on mute, please, if you're currently not.
I am, let's see here.
can see it.
Yeah, I got
Yes,
the wrong screen up though. Apologize.
No, this is a challenge. We've all been reading about virtual meetings. There you are.
There you go. There we go. All right. So a lot of this you've seen before or may remember from the previous meetings. Essentially, of course, the site remains the same. We still are providing, we're still at the intersection of Hankerson and 52nd. Our surrounding does have single family, but there's also twin homes, high density residential, high density residential, high density residential, high density residential, commercial, and retail along Vernon. And that basically is what we are working at as a surrounding neighborhood and what we're trying to fill in this area right between the Wells Fargo Bank and the apartment building next to us. The current fourplex was built in 1955, which is prior to any zoning ordinances in the city of Edina. I know that everybody calls this a non-conforming building, and actually the zoning was never written to accommodate the building that existed. I think we all know that back in the time when the zoning started, that single family was pretty much what everything got zoned as. So the fact that this doesn't have currently something other than a residential zoning is really more of an artifact of the zoning process. With that said, the site has been medium density attached housing since 1955 or since 1955. And medium density in Edina is up to 12 units an acre, and what we're proposing as a medium density project here is 11.9. Essentially, this parcel has a very unique size and shape. It's pretty easy to see with the numbered lots here, the lots that, single family lots that could have existed here that do not. And what this plate is supposed to demonstrate is how we can say that accommodate the 3 extra homes and the traffic generated by 3 extra homes. Essentially, there were 13 lots here that would have been single families had the area developed as balance of it, the single family area. And those 13 lots obviously would have generated more traffic than what this project has. We had some feedback about the alley and it being a playground and things, and I really don't think when you look at what's actually there that the concept of the alley as a playground really doesn't sort of hold water. There are some areas on the alley also that are this is significantly denser a use than what our project will have on its driveways. There was also some comments about snow removal and things like that. I'd like to remind the Planning Commission that as a townhome project with an association, essentially they will be paying for snow removal. So that needs to be removed from the site since there really isn't any area on the site to store it. I don't think that some of the neighbors may understand that this actually is going to make the alley snow issue a little better. Missing middle, I think we've all talked about this many times. It's defined as essentially mid-density housing, including townhouses and the duplexes in the area here. We do have 8 new single-family townhomes proposed with this. We did have to move our product a little bit up in our pricing because of the fewer units. It wasn't simply, oh, we'll delete 2 units and the project still works. We did definitely have to work on the project quite a bit in order to figure out where we're going to land in our market, how that market is going to match up to the existing other products in the area, making sure that we don't run into some of the problems that those other projects have, and yet still create a project that the city of Edina and Donny Homes and the owners, the McDonoughs, are going to be proud of. Obviously, we have been building in Edina for quite a while. This is a sample of another product low maintenance. They're all low maintenance products.
Mr.
long-lasting
Benke,
products.
if I can
Yes,
just
go ahead.
interrupt. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but you're kind of. I'm not hearing every word you're saying. Is there a
Okay.
way to fix your mic?
Well, I'm working off my phone, so perhaps I just slow down a little bit.
Sure, anything. We definitely want to hear everything you say.
Sure. One thing I've noticed by working virtually is I don't have some of the feedback from the audience, and I do tend to sort of pick up speed as I move along. So I think what I'll do is just consciously try to slow down a little bit here. Back to the building type. Again, the product is a high quality exterior, and our elevations are. I'm not quite there yet, I guess. One thing that's come up since our planning commission meeting before was how many people come and see us during the parade of homes in Edina and talk about wanting something other than single-family homes. A lot of people who currently have single-family are looking for townhomes, and since they know we built them elsewhere, we're getting a lot of people asking when we're going to build in Edina. This obviously is an opportunity for that. The site plan has changed in that we removed the building on this end of the 10-plex to save these two larger pine trees. We did have the city forester take a look at them. His opinion was the one white pine was in the 50-plus year range, perhaps as old as 70. It is still in really good shape. The other coniferous tree, he didn't offer me what variety it was. He said that one was also in good shape. While there is a large elm back in this area that's been maintained by the homeowners, it is reaching the end of its life, and we really felt that given its age and the fact that it was an elm, while it's in good shape, it was one that we decided that we really needed to remove at this point. Removing this unit then has greatly increased our setback from 52nd Avenue, 52nd Street, to the point where we actually exceed the setback of the building to the north. We do have a 20-foot setback between these two buildings now, and that's where the second unit was removed. And that means that our north setback is still 12 feet to the property line. However, we're 40 feet building to building to the home on the next lot to the north. The building has changed a little bit. We've gone with a little bit more of a modern farmhouse character is what it's being characterized at. Whether or not it fits that in everybody's mind, I guess that's always subject to your opinion. We do have, like I say, the cultured stone is down at the base. It's also surrounding on some of the entries. We do have the LP siding, the composite siding with the 25-year warranty on paint. We do have architectural shingles. Basically, the exterior products are very comparable to the previous image. The building does sit up off of Hankerson, but it is in line with the single-family units that are north. They all pretty much share a 35-foot setback from the street. We are going to continue the trees, replacing the trees actually in excess of what would normally be required, mainly because the site now has quite a bit of green space. This image actually shows how we relate to the adjacent home. There is 40 feet of distance between these two, and like I say, the buildings are fairly well set back from Hankerson still. Essentially, the front yards will step down about a half a level to the front yards the front yards currently do fall off the street. So essentially, all the front yards are going to, they'll probably end up being developed and as more of a yard as opposed to anything else. We did have some fencing and stuff that we had included at one point, trying to create some semi-private areas. That's been removed at this point. What we still do have, though, is in the building, in this part of the building, we do have atriums that each unit has that allows them to have outside spaces.
Mr. Denke, I'm sorry to interrupt. Sorry to interrupt you again. Is it possible to bring the phone closer to your mouth, perhaps? We're starting to lose you again.
I'm on an earpiece.
Perfect. Now you hit it.
Okay. All right. That atrium also introduces light into the interiors of the units. It also helps us with our rainwater collection to help with our retention and our filtration off-site to accommodate the additional hard cover that we have. Buildings actually match up very well with the adjacent structures in terms of height. This is the duplex on Williams Avenue, and I think you can see that its basement and its garage is the same elevation as our garage. So basically their main floor is the same elevation as our upper floor. That's trying to give you a relation across the alley to see how those units all fit in. And then as you move to the front of the building, you can see that we fall off down to Hankerson gently. The lower image shows what happens where we have split the building. And again, this building on the right is the duplex on William, and then the adjacent house. And you can see how now there's more of a gap and you can see through the building. And that's the end of that. I would stand for questions at this point.
Do any commissioners have questions for the applicant?
I do. This is Commissioner Agnew. You mentioned that the average home price was going to be increasing for the reduced number of units.
Right.
Did you say specifically what the new home prices would be?
We're definitely strong in the sevens right now, where the previous version, we would have started our base pricing in the upper sixes, and even the base price of the middle units would have been right around $700,000. We have had to move up market some to accommodate the different, the lesser units. We're going to be more in the mid sevens with our starting pricing. I would point out that that's comparable to the other units that you saw as well.
Okay. That's the only question I have at this time.
Okay, thank you, Kate. Any other commissioners have questions? I had a couple, I think. Can you go back to slide 11? I think.
This one, Chair?
Yeah, that's 16.
I don't see the numbers on my page.
One more. Back one more.
Sorry. There we are. There we are.
Okay. Two questions here. First of all, on the far right, I believe that's the north end.
Correct.
Now, during your course of discussions with the Planning Commission, City Council, sketch plans, and previous public hearings, I believe that north end has moved back and forth closer and farther from the street. Could you give us kind of the history of it and how you landed where you are right now?
Sure. The original 10-unit building was set in this location with another unit here and a unit on the south end at this point. during discussions with the city planner, it was observed that we had a significant amount of additional green space against 52nd. And one of staff's recommendations was to take the 10-unit building and move it 10 feet south. That would have given us a 2-foot setback from the property line here on 52nd, but there's a there's a much larger right-of-way here than exists elsewhere in the city. That would have taken the building from 12 feet from the north line to 22. Given that we had a request from City Council to take a hard look at trying to save the pine tree, the white pine that's here, and the desire to split the building to create 2 smaller footprints, basically Lot 8 here goes back to the same location where Lot 10 used to be, with the 12-foot setback to the north line.
Okay, so the setback is about where it was originally.
Correct.
Okay. Second, on this page, now you have that gap space. That's about 20 feet, I understand?
It is 20 feet exactly. All we did was remove a unit from that location.
Okay. How will that be cared for? I mean, it's shown as green right now, but I assume there's a shadow, and then it's, and that when snow comes, snow might accumulate there. How will that be cared for?
The entire site has common space. It's not handled like some townhomes where you have envelope lots around each unit, but we do have an association for maintenance. Obviously, we have grading in between them so that if there's any accumulating snow, it'll drain away from the units. I do expect that area will be somewhat sodded, if not entirely sodded. I do think you may find some shrub massings and things at the ends of it, but I do think it sort of becomes a little bit of a yard for some of the people that live here as well, in addition to the one along Gankerson. But I don't see it being handled any different than common space in a townhome project. The association will maintain all common space, all exterior space on this site.
Okay, thanks. I'm going to pause. I had one other question, but I want to turn it back to any other commissioners to see if anyone else had any further questions. Okay, I'll ask my final question then. This is a comprehensive plan amendment. That's kind of a big deal, bigger than a variance or even a PUD in and of itself. And in the city of Edina over the last several years, comprehensive plan amendments have become notable, and we received lots of public feedback. The people were unhappy with the number of comprehensive plan amendments, and now we've just filed our comprehensive plan, and I believe it's going to be approved imminently. And now we're talking about a comprehensive plan amendment. I've been giving some thought to when comprehensive plan amendments should be done. And, in some of our small area plans, we talk about times such as major contributions to the public welfare. I'm wondering if but in this case, we have an applicant that's very sophisticated. I'm wondering if you could kind of give us your pitch as to why it's worthwhile for Edina to do this comprehensive plan amendment, a comprehensive plan amendment for this project, taking into account kind of the negative public perception of doing comprehensive plan amendments.
I think the biggest issue right off the bat, Chair, is that the property exists as a medium density use and has historically since it was built. And not granting it is unreasonable in our mind. If you're not granting it, you're requiring these single families. So you're essentially taking away from what currently exists. I think that's the number one case where this comp plan change is not only reasonable, it's virtually required. It's an area that was clearly not zoned or guided properly from when it was originally built. And like I say, to take that back now becomes almost a taking. The rezoning, I think, fits in the same category, is that it's currently zoned as R1 attached, but there really isn't an R1 attached product in today's world. A single family attached is an R3. And I may be using different terms than what the zoning code refers to it as, but our current classifications, anything attached would be a townhome. And that's really what we're proposing here, is to create a townhome project that is single family in scale while not being single family. You're getting the benefits of the attached housing in terms of a little bit lesser costs in construction. You're getting a little bit more density, but we're not asking for the high density zoning or the high density guidance. We're simply trying to say this is what currently exists, and I think that is the key factor to this.
Mr. Benke, do any other commissioners have questions for the applicant? Well, that said, please stick around. Maybe we'll come back to you, but this is a public hearing, as we've mentioned, so that means that we'll take public testimony. We also have received a couple comments by Better Together, and we've received emails from residents with ideas too. But at this point, I'd like to open this up for public testimony. If you'd like to call in, the number is 1-800-374-0221, conference ID 896-8709. Press star, was it #1, Jennifer?
*1, Chair Nemerov.
*1, thank you very much. And we put in a queue. You'll get 3 minutes. We'll keep track. We'll let you know when you're coming up to the end of your 3 minutes. And we just ask that, if possible, obviously the comments are related to this project, not just anything, but that if you have comments, you try not to repeat things that have already been presented. So I'll turn it over to staff, and they'll let us know if we have any callers.
We do have one caller. Operator, will you please open Dennis Bornfeld's line? And Dennis, please begin your remarks by clearly stating your full name and address, including apartment or business suite number if applicable. Thank you.
Yes, hi, this is Dennis Bornfleth at 5124 Hankerson Avenue. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Just wanted to, I know I've got 3 minutes here. Let me go through, if I could, several points here so I can get them covered. I just want to say hello, Planning Commission members and Director Teague. I appreciate the time to submit some points here that are against this project. Just to start off with several points that I've mentioned, or neighborhood has mentioned here. In a meeting on February 28th, as well as a City Council meeting back on April 7th, Donnie Holmes has mentioned that 10 units would be the minimum that they could build due to building costs. And I guess my question is, why are we meeting today, and then why do we have a meeting on June 16th to discuss an 8-unit proposal? Because we were told several times that 10 was the absolute minimum, especially when material costs have been going up over the last several years. I guess I'm curious what has changed. Maybe somebody could ask the builder what has changed, because over and over, 10 units is the absolute minimum. Point number 2, during the last several meetings with commissioners, council members, and Mayor Hoagland, there were concerns raised about the Hankerson Avenue and northern property setbacks. I know this was addressed a little bit tonight, but just to let you know, the audio on the number that we entered was not working, so we couldn't really call in to leave comments like we're doing now. I think they've corrected it, but I'm not sure. Anyway, concerns were raised with the Hankerson Avenue and northern property setbacks. And then over the next several months, these setbacks were revised in March and April, but recently the builder has gone back to the original setbacks per their current applicant's submittal on BTE. In other words, the 50-foot northern setback is now down to 42.5 feet, so we've lost about 8 feet there in the northern setback. And there are several, if you look at the diagram that was presented tonight, that's different than the one that's on the BTE website. On the BTE website, there are several 5-foot deep by 20-foot tall porches that have been added since the last submittal. And what that basically means is that the property is now 5 feet closer to Hankerson than what it was before. And Director Teague has confirmed that these setbacks are now back to what was proposed before. And then I feel strongly we should save the trees, but it seems like we're taking, by saving the trees, looks like we're taking 1 step forward to save the trees, but 2 steps backwards because of the different setbacks. And especially, like has been mentioned here, I think I heard part of this is that there's a 20-foot section of empty space between the 2 plexes, and the units have decreased by 2, freeing up an additional 40 to 60 feet. So I guess since we have extra feet, why would we lose the setbacks on the northern end, and then why would we lose the setback or put this project closer to Hankerson? Point number 3, neighbors still feel these 2 massive buildings with 8 units change the character of the neighborhood, and no options have been submitted after numerous requests by commissioners and city council members.
Mr. Hartwell, could you make your final point, please?
Will do. Also, does it make sense when you think about this to replace a 4-plex? And remember, this is low density attached, and only 5 units can be on this property. I don't know why we keep on saying it's medium density because it's low density attached today with only 5 units. Why does it make sense to replace a 4-plex, which is too big for the property, with 2 large 4-unit buildings? And that's basically coming from, sincerely, Hankerson, William Avenue, and Bedford Avenue neighbors. I appreciate the time. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. Do we have other callers? We'll wait a moment.
We do not have any other callers at this time. I would like to acknowledge Mr. Bornfleth's comments. Earlier in the meeting, we were experiencing an issue with intercall. The 2 people who had connected were not able to hear. That matter was resolved before the start of the public hearing, so no one should have any difficulties getting through right now. We did contact both of the callers, including Mr. Bornfleth, who was obviously able to get through. Even though we don't have any callers, though, I would recommend that you hang on the line for just another minute or 2 in case anyone else decides to call in with comments.
Thank you. Yeah, you know, I mean, I've been doing conference calls and that sort of thing for a long time. The number of technological problems we've had on these calls is remarkably low. So tonight we've had a couple, you know, but.
Thank you for your patience.
Well, let us know when you're okay with our going on. And any further callers?
We can move forward.
Okay. Do we, Carrie, again, do we need to close community participation, or can we just keep that open?
No, you would need to close the public hearing.
Okay, can I get a motion then? Can we close the public hearing?
To close the public hearing.
A second, anyone? Second. Okay, Liz, could you take a roll vote, please?
Thank you, Chair Nemerov. Commissioner Douglas?
Aye.
Commissioner Agnew?
Aye.
Commissioner Bennett? Commissioner Olson?
Aye.
Aye. Commissioner Strauss?
Aye.
Commissioner Berube?
Aye.
Chair Nemerov?
Aye. Okay, so we've received some public comments, and we got 2 comments on Better Together. One of which was very similar to the comment we got orally this evening. So I think some of these comments go to the applicant, some go to the staff. I'd like to start with staff if I can. One question that was asked, I'll send this to you, Carrie, was why is there another meeting? We've already had a meeting. So can you kind of just give a response to that question? Why are we reviewing another proposal?
Yep, certainly. The applicant has decided to revise their plans to try to accommodate 8 units instead of 10. And as with any application, when we receive an application, we have to process it. If we don't process an application, they become automatically approved. Cities have between 60 and 100 days to take action. So we have an application before us for the 8 units.
Okay. Thank you. I think a couple other comments I had that I took that I wanted to follow up on, and commissioners may have others. One was on our Better Together response. This is a question for the applicant. There were comments about materials, and I saw at one point in the package we received preparing us for this meeting that the applicant might have a materials board. The comment basically could be summarized as that there was a concern that the materials for this project won't meet the materials for the neighborhood. So I guess I have 2 questions for the applicant. One is if you can just respond to that generally, and 2, if you'd like to share the kind of materials that you plan to use for this project.
Sure. Let me go back to sharing here for a second. And I actually had a few other comments I can respond to. Trying to find the right. That's not right. So from a material standpoint, this is a similar structure in Plymouth that we built. You can see the LP lap siding. It's a composite siding. Some people would use Hardy as a comparable product. Essentially, composite materials these days are extremely durable. We order them pre-finished, and the product has a 25-year minimum paint warranty. We do use aluminum soffit, aluminum fascia on a product at this price point. We do have architectural shingles. This color scheme is similar to what we're proposing to the building. And then we do have a stone product similar to this. I actually had another one here as well. One second. And are you seeing this, the stone pattern on the screen right now?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, essentially, I'm stuck a little bit with COVID too, in that I couldn't get into the building where I would normally get my samples in order to create a sample board. But I also felt that having materials from an existing structure that is actually what's been we put up within the last 3 months would be as good example as having the board in front of you. I do apologize, but I think that's a concession to meeting virtually as well. In terms of its compatibility with the neighborhood, I'd offer that these products are arguably better than some of the houses that are in, and the duplexes that are in the neighborhood. They do represent the current, and I'll use the word standard, to construction in Edina in terms of providing low maintenance and very low maintenance products with long-term durability. To jump to the comment about the porches, I'd like to go back to the site plan. Essentially what the caller talked about was the fact that we've actually made a porch at the front entry. Now, according to previous applications and my reading of the zoning code, and I think the planner can comment here, porches that do not have living space above them are not considered, as long as they are less than 50 square feet, as these are not considered a front setback encroachment. And if we look to the elevations, it's this part of the building right here that is now covered and given some definition to the front of the building, so the building itself isn't flat. It's this area here and here. As far as the building being massive, the roof line here has actually been reduced another 2 to 3 feet, given our previous submittal. And the structure is no different in terms of its height than a 2-story house on these lots would be. The fact that the neighbor has a rambler, his main floor is essentially the same level as the main floor of this unit. So if his house was a 2-story, it would be as tall as this building. So I can't quite get to the point where I agree with the massive comment. The issue of the 10 units to the 8, I think I've already addressed that. And while the original proposal had a certain price point we were looking at, given our work with marketing or our market analysis of the other condo style townhouses that currently are for sale and existing in the city of Edina nearby, we do have a price point here that we're trying to hit if we do see a good saleable product at. And you know, the caller said, well, we said 10. Yeah, well, 10 was based on a certain price point. We've had to change that price point by losing 2 units. And I think we just have to understand that the site, any site in Edina, is going to have a limit as to what people can afford, what they're going to want to invest in a piece of property here. And what we currently have here is an appropriate product, again, for what we believe the market in this area is. As far as the setbacks, we are back to the original proposal that we had, yes. We do have 12.5 feet to the north property line, and that meets their, it is as appropriate setback given the kind of building and the kind of area that we're in here. I think the planner had noted that we could actually go with a shorter setback, but we've actually pulled this back a little farther. At this point, I don't think that we would want to propose a smaller building-to-building setback here. I've done it in some areas, but given the length of the building from front to back here, given that it has a alley-load garage, that we do need some space there to create a proper area between the buildings. The comment about this is low density now, and I think the planner can address this as well. The current apartment building is not low density. When you take the current number of units against the size of the lot, it is a medium density. It falls under the City of Edina's medium density number of units. And that was my point about this being a medium density property, medium density use. It's existed as a medium density use since it was built. And trying to say it's low density is not really accurate. The existing use, I think, needs to be looked at and understood and addressed.
Mr. Benke, did you conclude your responses?
Yep, I do.
Okay, then you answered all the things I was going to ask, but do any other commissioners have any further follow-up questions from the public comments? Well, then it's time for Planning Commission discussion. Would any, I may call on everyone at some point, but is there someone like to start off, or would you guys like me to call on someone?
And I'll start. I've got.
Great.
Yes, I'm convinced. I think the fact they'd listen. I mean, maybe an aside. In our future activities, if we're told that this is all they can do and it's 10 and no more, and we can't press for something different, I think we'd be well advised to remember that things can happen. So they, they did go back, they did reevaluate, they did come up, and to me, I think the product there, the 2-4 unit with the separation between the units, answered the problems with the massing and the kind of density of the previous plan. And I think this does fit. And I think the setbacks are adequate. I think it's going to be a very good addition to this neighborhood. Thanks.
Thank you, Jerry. Anyone else, or I may start calling on people for this matter, not this general practice, but Chris, how about you? We're glad to have you with us tonight. Do you have you don't have to have feedback, but do you have anything you'd like to share?
I do, just very briefly. I agree with Jerry's comments. It feels like the revised proposal meets a need within Edina, and it seems to be reasonable in terms of scale and setbacks and design. It feels like it's a good bridge from some of the neighboring larger properties. So based on those things, and I won't rehash everything that Jerry said, I'm leaning to be in favor of it.
Thank you, Chris. Kate, how about you? Do you have any comments?
I mean, it went through the Planning Commission last time, and I was supportive of it then. The thing that continues to stay in my mind is obviously the feedback that we have gotten from the community members. But I agree with the other comments that have already been said, that I do feel like a lot of those have been addressed. And I think that some of the comments that we had received both at the last Planning Commission meeting as well as online seem to be more about the concern of that intersection potentially being opened up. And I want to be clear that that is not a part of what we're discussing right here today. And so as long as the community members, I think, understand that that is not on the table for this discussion, I think I am supportive of this as well.
Jimmy, how about you? Do you have anything you'd like to share?
Oh, yeah.
Jimmy? Okay.
Yeah, lots of stuff. Wow. I guess buckle your seatbelts. No, I guess I won't also belabor, a lot of the points I hit on last time. There were a lot of, downsides and a lot of benefits, and there clearly are some of each of those still, but the relationship between those has changed a little bit, and the balance has certainly shifted towards supporting this project more. I still want to, just out of principle, kind of touch on the big downsides of this project as I elaborated on last time. But, this project does, in effect, replace a single family lot with more density. And, our comp plan that we just, approved promised our people that change would occur in our commercial nodes, in those commercial nodes, not next to them or in our single family neighborhood. So, that's still my biggest source of heartburn with this project. And now we're considering a comprehensive plan amendment. So that, just kind of goes toward that encroachment that I don't want any people or neighbors to feel, that I think a lot of people were feeling, and that was evident the last public hearing. But, I do want to kind of touch on some of the benefits and maybe reiterate some of the ones that other people shared. Simply put, progress continues to reflect commissioner, council member, and neighbors, concerns and ideas, and that's important. So, like for me, last time they presented a lot of positive changes, shrinking the density from 12 to 10, moving garages to the back, rear loading the lots. A lot of those things were good, but it wasn't quite enough to support the project. And that was also reflected by, the unanimous lack of support of neighbors. But here we are again, and, we're subject to more positive changes. And, at least to me, they've addressed almost all of my main areas of contention. Number one was the density. They brought that down to a more tolerable level. So it's medium density. It's the way to go here. The net balance is now 3 additional units for the same land area. And, that won't clash as much with the single family home vibe that exists down that block. The effect of increased traffic and, cars is going to be negligible throughout the day. And that's better. Another hot button for me last time was the massing of the building. I really did not support the big, long, monotonous mass. And I think the density at 10 only exacerbated those issues. So now breaking up the building into 2 separate structures and changing or at least elaborating on the design as, modern farmhouse or whatever, I think that will only complement the neighborhood better. And so I have to weigh those things against replacing a single family home lot because, that graceful transition to the neighbors is now even more critical. So I really appreciate that. So just to kind of hit on the last pieces of this, we at least in front of us, we have a project with some downsides, but, one with a wealth of benefits. And it's a project whose process has exhibited positive compromises away from the developer and in favor of the community each step of the way. And that's a good process. This project will provide, a net surplus of 7 new ownership options for existing and or future Edina residents. And that's good. As I mentioned before, this project will serve as a graceful transition into and out of the neighborhood. And, it will instantly kind of be compatible and mesh well with, the variety of uses and structures around their single family homes, duplexes, higher density, and then the commercial area. And kind of along that point, I think, we don't want to forget it because the same thing happened at 44th in France. There we had this industrial waste land, this toxic piece of project. What's there right now is a distressed fourplex. It's basically an old doormat to the neighborhood. And, this will be revitalizing kind of that welcoming feel to that neighborhood and provide, a lowercase a affordable product that inherently adds diversity to the area. And so, I mentioned it last time, but want to touch on it again because we're getting closer and closer to an ideal situation. But as we look forward to the future, this project has some built-in resilience. It, when you share walls, you're conserving energy, and it points to more sustainable development and living. And to that end, it breeds some social sustainability because it facilitates more people to live closer, but also own a home and a yard to raise a family, and be able to easily interface with the community and the adjacent neighborhood, by being able to walk or bike to get groceries and other services. And moving and encouraging that in our developments is something I fully support. So at this point, compared to last time, I support this project more than I'm opposed to it, and welcome it into the future of Edina. And just a quick message and plug to the city council. As we look to the future, this should really be yet another nudge for the city council to start to jumpstart and address these deferred opportunities to connect to this neighborhood more safely by foot or by bike across Vernon to that commercial node. So I hope this can happen with supporting this project. Hopefully this can start jumpstarting some of the development that we need to see to protect people to get across Vernon more safely. And I will wrap up my rant with that. Thank you.
Thanks, Jimmy. And your microphone is quite good. We should get those technical specs you're using. Sheila, do you have comments you'd like to share?
Sure, thank you. I'll just quickly, most of my comments have been mentioned already. Overall, I think this is an attractive project. Donna builds high quality housing, and I think this will look good. As I mentioned at the last meeting for this project, I think this addresses the missing middle that we talked about in the comp plan. And, you know, I think it's important to also consider that it's replacing a multifamily with a multifamily, and there's duplexes in the back. It isn't like we're plopping it into solely single family. Also across the street on 52nd is a pretty large apartment building. And so it isn't, you know, this truly is the buffer zone. And I think this is a perfect building for that. I think the improvements that have been made since last time the applicant was in front of us are good ones. Breaking up that mass is a benefit. And I'm glad to see that they were able to do this with 8 units to 4 plexes instead of the one big one. I think that was a good thing. So I applaud the city council for pushing back so hard on that. I think that ended up being a good move, and it's a good lesson, like Jerry said. We'll have to keep that in mind, and you know that at times that works. Yeah, so I'm, you know, I was supportive of this last time, and I think this is an improvement.
Joanne, do you have anything you would like to share with us?
Sure, just again, real brief. I think my comments have been already made, but I really think this is an improvement. I thought the last was too dense, and I like them breaking it up into 2 buildings and reducing the number of units. And it looks like a nice product, so I'm going to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. I agree with I agree with the vast majority of everyone's comments. I had one question for Carrie, and then I want to touch on just something else. One comment was made that there was like net 7 new units. Carrie, my understanding is there's going to be net 3 new, basically.
That is correct. There are 5 units there today, including the single family home.
Okay, and this will have 8 units.
Yep.
Okay, so I like this project. I think that the applicants have throughout the process have really demonstrated professionalism and talent, and I like this project. My big concern has always been the comprehensive plan amendment. I think with this project, and I've given a lot of thought to when you should give when we can give when we should give comprehensive plan amendments and when we should hold off, and I think we should have some reasons why. And I think for this project as presented, I would support a comprehensive plan amendment for this project. I share all the reasons in favor of it that have been raised by everyone, all the other commissioners. I think the reasons for a comprehensive plan amendment on this one are as follows. One is it does, as other commissioners have mentioned, this does present something to Edina that we don't have today, which is essentially a missing middle type housing. It's a nice start on a missing middle that we may, although we may have some of it, this will be a nice addition to missing middle, which is something that either we don't have or that we could use more of. So that is a benefit to the community. I also think that although it is a comprehensive plan amendment, it's just a small change from the requirements. This isn't a major change from what the current requirements are. I think, as the applicant mentioned, the requirements were created in the 60s, and they may not fit. This would just result in a small change from the requirements, and it would be consistent with other properties that are within a short distance of the property. So I think that's another reason why a comprehensive plan amendment for this quality project is good. What else? I did also want to address the additional submittals. and that is, they basically, applicants are free to submit. Now, we have seen a few times lately where we've seen the same project come back and forth. Applicants are free to submit. It's kind of part of how our country works. I mean, you're free. We're also free as reviewers to start getting a little sketchy and cross-eyed if we think someone is taking advantage of the process and feeling like I don't think that's the case here. I share the community concern when things come up repeatedly. I don't feel that the applicant was taking advantage of the process. I think the applicant was getting feedback, went to the city council. City council was like, this isn't going to quite work. Please try again. And I think that's why I think the try again works nicely. So I am also, as I think every commissioner who's spoken tonight, I am in support of moving this forward this project forward. So with that, does anyone else have any comments? Does anyone like to make a motion? Any further questions? Chris, how about you? Do you have it? Would you like to?
I never get the format correct. I move to.
Would you like to
look at it? I'll let someone else. I'll second it.
Okay, now anyone like to make a motion? Because we have a second already lined up for you. You don't have to. No one has to make a motion if people don't want to.
Like it. I move to approve the comprehensive plan amendment and preliminary rezoning for the corner of Hankerson Avenue and 52nd Street West with the conditions in the staff report.
Hey, Chris, I was only calling you because this might be the last time you get to move something. Do you want to second that motion?
I'll second it. I'm good at seconding.
All right. Any further discussion, commissioners? Liz, would you take a roll vote, please?
Thanks, Chair Numrov. Commissioner Douglas?
Aye.
Commissioner Agnew?
Aye.
Commissioner Bennett?
Aye.
Commissioner Olson?
Aye.
Commissioner Strauss?
Aye.
Commissioner Berube?
Aye.
Chair Numrov?
Aye. So then, Carrie, does this go to the city council now?
This goes to City Council on June 16th.
Thank you. And good luck with council. Thank you very much. That takes us to the end of the public hearing portion of our meeting and on to reports and recommendations. Tonight we have one report recommendation. That's a sketch plan review for on Valley View in the Valley View Wooddale district. It's the I'll just let Carrie take it from here.
Yes, thank you, Chair, members of the commission. Property is located in the Valley View and Wooddale area, 4425. It is the old New Horizon daycare site on the south side of Valley View Road. It's just south of the Edina Flats project. What the applicant would like to do here is construct a 3-story apartment building, upscale, be 21 units with 32 underground parking stalls. Access would be available off Valley View Road right here. Here's a look at the building. Another view. They would be requesting some variant. This property is currently zoned planned commercial district. Multifamily housing is a conditionally permitted use. They would be seeking some variances to bring the building up a little closer to the street, 16-foot setback, and to the rear, a 20-foot setback. The height in this district is a maximum of 2 stories and 24 feet. Yet this project is proposing 3 stories and 36 feet, and also some flexibility on the floor area ratio. We did the small area plan for the Valley View Wooddale area, and this site is located right here. And as indicated on the diagram here, we anticipated 4 stories as the maximum height on this site. That's what these numbers indicate. So it is within the small area plan, but they would need a variance for the height. So this request would need a conditional use permit, the variances that I mentioned. With that, so the usual traffic study would be needed as part of a formal application. So more to come on the traffic issues. One issue that was raised by our engineering department is note that there is a boulevard or there's an existing sidewalk right along Valley View Road. They're suggesting that we do a boulevard style sidewalk, kind of similar to what we're with the other project. With that, I will stop there, answer any questions you might have, and Dean DeBolis and Michael Margulies, the applicant, are here to answer any questions, or make a little more detailed presentation of what they're proposing here.
Thanks, Carrie. Does anyone have any questions for Carrie? All right, Mr. DeVolis, all yours.
You hear me okay?
Yes.
Oh, beautiful. And actually, I'm going to introduce Scott England, who's my business partner, who is going to give you a delightfully short presentation on this building and give you a quick walkthrough, and then we'll be all available for questions. So, Scott, are you ready? If not, I could walk through. Or Scott, are you set?
I think that we can see Scott's screen, but we're unable to hear Scott.
All right. You go. All right, Scott said I'm going to go. All right, so let me give a quick walkthrough. So as you can tell, and thank you for pulling this up, it's an infill project, which used to be a daycare in the location. And the reason why we moved closer to preserve the collar trees that exist all around the site. And this site plan shows the trees were planted preserved. The trees that are in orange are the ones we'd have to remove. And you see most of them are small trees. There's only one large tree in the front that we couldn't quite get to save. But the idea that we thought the critical trees to preserve the trees along the south side of the property, because that really enhances the buffer and keeps the lake as a natural element in that area and preserves all the greenery. So we really worked hard to make this fit around the existing trees and keep that. The other thing we're proposing is to, we've had a discussion with the building owner to the east, is to use one common driveway. So that we can do for hardscape in development, instead of having two separate curb cuts, we can incorporate down to one curb cut and thus eliminate two side-by-side driveways and thus preserve more trees. That's this option. The main floor units, as you can tell by the site plan, will directly connect to the street, so it'll be more set up like a townhouse setup, each with a front porch. We plan to do along, you want to go back on to the, anyway, we plan to landscape this both in preserving the trees, but create a lot of lower scale ground cover plants, landscape elements. So the idea that instead of having a site that's a lot of lawn, there'll be a lot of greenery, plant, ground cover, and so forth to sort of enhance the natural look that the site has from behind it. And this you can sort of see the development of the front patios and the direct entries that really create a connection to the street with the main floor units and provide a townhouse effect. Next slide, please. Thank you. And then here's the unit plans. We're going to have 100% enclosed parking. So this development will have no surface parking visible at all. So all apartments and guest parking will be within the building. And these are going to tend to be larger units. This is meant to be more of a long-term type of rental situation, with the idea that people who sell their homes would have an opportunity to live within the neighborhood. That's the basic purpose of the building, and provide a elegant place for them to reside once they're tired of cutting grass and deal with their home on that basis. And we'll have a small rooftop terrace on the top floor in the building. So it's a pretty straightforward building with a variety of nice unit sizes. And like I mentioned before, we plan to close all our parking so that we really just have green and building and no parking lot as part of it. Next slide, please. And then here's just the data that you can see, pretty straightforward. So I won't walk through it in terms of number of units, the parking, the ratio. You know, we're going with 21 units. So we're going with basically an apartment building. And probably the closest example, we finished a building at 50th and France and 51st and Ewing is a similar scale. That was 16 units. And again, the same idea, that at 100% enclosed parking. If you want to go look at an example that is similar to this building. The reason why we put the long area plan on the sheet, slide back one more sheet, please, is we really base this plan on the neighborhood small area plan. That was our guide to shape this development. That's what really gave it. So that really became the code and zoning and criteria we followed. The zoning hasn't caught up to the small area plan. We thought the small area plan was appropriate for the scale and a good guideline. So that's what this project is really based on in terms of design, heights, and mass, and so forth. Next slide, please. So then this is a view looking towards the west. And again, the idea to be a combination of brick materials to make the base, along with the individual courtyards in front of each unit. The entry at the far end at the view, and then it'll be a painted white wood siding that'll comprise at the bottom of the building, lots of corners, and then we broke it in and out so it's kind of townhouse effect and scale the building overall. If you go to the next slide. This is looking at entry towards the east, and again that shows the main building entry component, and then the townhouse. So again, you get an idea of the landscape and sort of the greenery we want to establish of the building to create the effect. So essentially, that essentially concludes our presentation, and I'll stand for questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. DeVos. Commissioners, this is our opportunity to ask questions of the applicant and give our feedback too to this project. So,
one last point. My apologies. We did have a neighborhood meeting a week ago, which we had very good reaction to it. So my apologies, forgot to mention that. Thank you.
All right, that's great. That's good to know. Would a commissioner like to kick it off?
I have a question for Mr. DeVos.
Great.
Yes, Mr. DeVos, the plan shows all your parking will be accomplished within the property, and would that be any, so you wouldn't, do you anticipate any need for on-street parking to serve this property?
Over parked by Dyna code, we have basically 2 spaces per unit. So I really think that it's unlikely. There may be a few visitors that may prefer to park the streets than the garage, but this is really just to park 100% on site. We have 2 spaces per unit, and we're above Edina code when it comes to parking.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's going to be a wonderful feature for how this project serves the neighborhood. I mean, I think it will be, you know, there won't be some of those irritating issues like spilling over, and so yeah, I think that's a very nice design. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sherry. Any other commissioners?
Yeah, this is Commissioner Berube. So I think the enclosed parking is fabulous. That, to me, that's just a really important feature. So I applaud you for that. It's interesting that it's overparked, because more and more we're seeing, you know, less need for parking. But I suppose that would be pretty easy to transition over to bicycle parking, or, you know, maintenance or storage, or, you know, you can put it to good use pretty quickly, I would guess.
Exactly.
The other thing I like, it seems like you've been thoughtful about the green space with the courtyards. And then did you say that there are terraces on the roof?
There's one roof deck. If
Okay.
you look at the roof, that little area is a little, if you put it in the center roof, is a little sun deck
Okay.
on the top of the roof.
Okay. Yeah, that's probably a nice feature for the residents. I guess the only thing that I would think about, the city engineers, it sounds like they are proposing maybe mandating a boulevard, which seems like a good feature. And then I don't know if it makes sense to put trees on there on the boulevard and just have a little bit more greenage at a higher height in the front. Seems like that might be a benefit. But overall, it seems attractive. At this point, I don't know that I really have any additional comments. At what price point would you guess these would run?
Michael, do you care to?
Excuse me for a second. I had my camera turned off and phone turned off. I apologize. The price point should be, price point should be at market. The market is not fully established and known at this point. There will be, there'll probably be upper middle price point for the Edina area. So I think they will encompass the higher end of the apartment rental market.
Did you consider making condominiums and decided on apartments? I'm just curious what that thought process was.
There was some discussion about forming a CIC for this property. The problem these days with condominium formation is that many of the contractors, because of liability issues, impose a different standard of construction, and it becomes almost prohibitively expensive, and it's difficult to recover costs. Using this standard type of apartment construction, we can construct a very, very elegant unit, and at a price point that, although represents a solid upper market in Edina, makes a reasonable value.
And the other thing we were considering is that, and Michael's right about the condominium. Condominium law still makes stuff. The other thing is that we're looking at legacy pieces on this instead of your standard 1-year term. People may opt for a 3-year or 5-year term. Some we've done is 10 years, so there'll be that option. So it's not a true condominium. We're looking at be seen flex in terms of length, give residents more of a skill.
You, that's all.
Other commissioners, would another commissioner like to ask questions or make comments?
Sure, this is Commissioner Agnew. Overall, I really like the plan, and I like bringing in more housing, especially apartment housing, into that area. I think this is a great location for that, especially with the daycare center having relocated to their new building. I really like this reuse. I'm wondering what could be done within the standard requirements of this location, such that you would be bringing something for approval that wouldn't require variances. Did you look at that, of what could be done within those existing standards?
Well, our main priority was to really follow the small area plan. That was really our guidance, and that's what we work with. Assuming that once the complex design is adopted, that the zoning plan will follow the small area plan. So that was the basis of our design, was what the neighborhood, and we met with the neighborhood group. We actually received a lot of comments that we followed that and used that guidance on this, and they actually like that scale of the building, but the scale that it brought a little bit of height, a little bit of new neighbors to the area, but within those guidelines. So that was our big, because the fact that the neighborhood went through such an excessive process to create those guidelines, we thought this is what we want to follow, and this is what we want to work around.
Thanks, Mr. Noel. Say, well, somebody has a bird that's looking for a worm.
I love it.
It's late at night, so if everyone could put themselves on mute except for the commissioner and the applicant, or then you're like, Kate, did you have other things for Mr. DeVolis?
Yeah, so one of the, I think, recommended comments from staff was that the boulevard be added into this plan, which again, also really love that idea. What do you know what impact that's going to have? Are you going to have to shrink the size of the building at all to accommodate that?
No. We would basically, in our sketch, it would come a little closer building than that buffer landscape you saw in the image of going the boulevard. Because our idea is to landscape the boulevard as part of the building landscape development. So yeah, well, it won't affect the building.
Okay. That's the only other question that I have. I thank you for looking at bringing more housing into this area.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other commissioners? There's a few of you we haven't heard from yet, if you'd like to participate.
It's Jimmy.
Jimmy, welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I just want to commend you on already a good process behind early phases of a project. A lot of times, in these small areas, we end up seeing something that's square peg round hole, trying to fit an idea into something already planned. So I really respect your approach in this process already of just starting with the small area plan and working around that and in it, because that automatically jibes with what the community wants, what we as a commission are trying to plan for, as well as the city council. So thank you for that. I have just a couple comments. I really liked your visual with the tree plan. I think that showed the situation really well. So I wanted to kind of commend you on the visual, like showing those orange trees can't make it, but hey, look at everything else we're keeping. Thought that was really well done. And I think that, just the better we can visually convey a future project to people and its impacts or the lack thereof, the better. So I really liked how you started with that. It makes me already more in favor of the potential project just from that standpoint. So thanks. As far as the boulevard goes, that was brought up. I know on the northwest part of this property, there's a bus stop. I don't believe that's changed. So it'd be nice to see what you could do to accommodate a more safer, comfortable transit facility as well.
Okay.
And how that could interface with the boulevard or sidewalk or plantings a little better. Just because if it's an apartment building, we're not really interfacing with the public as much as if it were like a first level commercial where we'd want some transparency. So just thinking of how the project, I guess, jibes with the community there. And your graphics already, it looks like you have a lot of great landscaping there. So I'd assume you would kind of tailor that in there, but I just didn't want that to get lost at this point. That was the bulk of my comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I think there's one or two of you still out there. Sheila, Joanne, have either of you shared? Would you like to?
Yeah, thanks, Ian. Yeah, I already made my comments. And
okay, Joanne.
Yeah, sure. Just a couple. I would like to see some larger trees along the boulevard if there's room. So it's kind of hard. I'm looking at the elevation on the northwest. Let's see, I don't know what page it is. But anyway, if you could move it down, I don't know exactly what's happening now with the boulevard, sidewalk, but if there is room, I always like to see something a little bit more substantial than just the ground cover that you're showing or kind of the grasses.
Okay.
And, agree with the bus stop, trying to make that a part of this. And I don't have, a good recommendation, but the architecture is just not, I don't know. It just looks kind of bland to me, and I apologize. I always hate kind of making criticisms like that. But it's just, it just seems like it could be, I don't know, dressed up a little bit. If you could just maybe look at that. But,
you one assignment, if you don't mind. We just finished a 16-unit building at 51st and Ewing. It's 50th in France, but on the Minneapolis side, just behind Rezo. Take a look at that and see if you like that level of detail.
Okay.
But this is sort of in that similar vein. And then see you again, or whenever I present again, just give me your feedback on that.
Okay. All right, great. Other than that, I think that this is, again, I love seeing the housing and the apartments in this location. So I think that this is wonderful use. So thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else, or has everyone spoken? Well, then I'll share some things. First of all, I'm very pleased with this project. When I saw it come across our to-do list, I think this will be a nice use of the space and a benefit to that neighborhood. I was just looking. Believe it or not, the Wooddale Valley View Small Area Plan was approved more than 5 years ago. I believe March 2015 is, I believe, when it was approved. At least that's the plan that was published that I found. So 5 years we've had this. I like that you're starting with that instead of our ordinances for the starting point for how to do it, because that really was the small area plan is the most recent collection of people in that neighborhood to say what they'd like to see. And I think that the small area plan, which, by the way, I'll put a little plug, it was chaired by former members of the Planning Commission, Susan Lee and Arlene Forrest. I think they did a really nice job of getting community feedback and expressing the community desire. And I think that if that work group were available today, they'd be pretty pleased to see this coming out of their work. So I'm less concerned with the boulevard sidewalk. I think it'd be an improvement. If you do, I think you'll work that out with the engineering. If you do, however, I share Commissioner Olson's comments about having some trees would be nice. We also want to make sure that we have, that it's safe. Obviously, if people are walking or running or biking on it, that we don't want anyone running into a tree, of course. But I think a tree would be nice. Regarding the appearance, in the sketch plan reviews are difficult. The drawings that we have in front of us made me wonder if the materials are precast or prefab type materials. And I definitely want to go on record as saying, please don't use any precast or prefab. The building behind Arezzo, I don't believe that it really has too much. At least the prominent features don't appear to be precast. I mean, could you talk to that a little?
Yeah, it's all natural material. With it's a 3-story building. Similar to this with masonry brick, hardwood paint above with a cornice, and same idea. We kept it simple but elegant, and that was sort of the idea of that. And the problem with the rendering on these small screens, it's a little tough because you can't read the detail, the wood side and all that I put in this building. So, graphically it's tough. But when we revise or enhance the presentation, we'll make sure you sort of see that detail that does occur in the upper part of the building, because the rendering sort of appears as a gray blob just in the character. So when I come back, I may blow up sections of the building so you can sort of see the thoughts. But it's the same idea of Arezzo, where we added that enhanced with a detail. So part of it, I think, is just lost just because of the scale of the presentation. But I'll make sure we express that better going forward. Because we do a detail that'll look at building, but not overstate it, not overplay it.
That sounds great. You know, one thing, the immediate neighbor is the M.A. Peterson building, and that's an attractive building. And maybe I wouldn't want you to copy that, but if there's something that you could, something that could be bought, perhaps that would be nice. Something that, you know.
The brick may be the brick, we may play with the brick colors to get a little more in concert with his color, his little deeper red. So that may be the basis, because our entry and base is brick, and we may get a little closer to his color, so it gets a little more blended together.
That might look nice. The other thing is, obviously, one thing that, I can't believe I'm saying this, but one thing that may be different in this building versus the building near Arezzo in Minneapolis is we may actually be thinking more about the interface between the building and the pedestrian experience. And I thought, I've been thinking Minneapolis, pedestrian city, but of course where that building's situated, perhaps they weren't as concerned. I don't know. I'm not saying there's anything wrong. I walked by it the other day, and it's nice. But whatever you can do to particularly on the first level, you sat through our conversation. No, you didn't actually. We earlier we had a work session regarding our Southdale Design Experience guidelines, and I know you're very familiar with those, and you've lived it very well. Whatever you can do to help make that pedestrian experience, we don't have the same guidelines applicable here that we do in Southdale. Whatever you can do to make that pedestrian experience seem engaging with the building would be nice.
And then that's why those front patios and individual sidewalks and
yeah,
those main level units direct to the street. And so the idea is that it reads more townhouse, more street oriented, as opposed to a typical apartment building like the ones either side of us, which have a single entrance, and all those main floor units don't connect to the street. So I thought it was really important that we emphasize those front yards, give a scale of not privacy, but sort of a private zone, but make this very definitive public connection of these entries that go to the street to make it less anonymous and more like the neighbor's residents feel very connected neighborhood and can walk directly to the street, to the various retail in the area. So that this building did have a very conscious move to make that connection.
And then finally, that's very interesting. That's wonderful. And then finally, the question, I don't know if anyone talked about it, is affordable housing. And this may be a question as much for staff as is for the applicant. I see it's 21 units. Is there an affordable housing component with this property, or how would that, if there is, and how would that be handled?
This is Margulies talking, Commissioner. This project, like all developments in Edina, are subject to affordable housing and inclusionary housing policies. This will conform either through the designation of the unit or through the payment of the inclusionary housing fee in lieu of designating a unit. That issue is still under consideration.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Margulies. Thank you very much. That's everything I had. I don't know, does anyone else have anything further? Any commissioners, anything further? For the applicants, is there anything else we could do for you tonight?
No, we appreciate your comments and feedback. We're excited about the project too, and based on your comments, take this before City Council. Michael, do you know when we go before City Council?
We'll go before City Council on next week, I believe.
That's correct. Yes, it's June 2nd.
Okay. And hopefully we get a good response. And if all that works out, we plan to proceed to a formal land use application and get the project going. So commissioners, again, thank you for your guidance and feedback on it. Appreciate it.
Thank you. We enjoyed it. All right. Well, that takes us out of the to our next matter on our agenda, which is correspondence and petitions. I guess I'll turn this over to staff. Carrie, is there anything we should be considering?
Nothing this evening.
Okay. chair and member comments. So do any members have any comments? Okay, I have two. First of all, Jerry, did you have something?
Yeah, yes, I have a question for Carrie. On the parking issue at the 45th and France got continued at the city council. And I wonder if that discussion had concluded?
It was concluded. The city council unanimously denied that request.
Jerry, do you have anything? So then I had two comments. One is before the meeting, not everyone was able to attend, but we had a good work session where we discussed the city's affordable housing policy, putting that into our ordinance. City affordable housing staff's going to go back and do a little research on a couple of things. I think she actually completed it, but during the meeting, but we ran out of time. So she's going to present something. We'll discuss it at an upcoming planning commission meeting. We also discussed an ordinance change perhaps to allow only a single garage, only to require a single garage stall per dwelling unit. And that'll come up at an upcoming planning commission meeting. And then we also discussed codifying portions of the Southdale Design Experience guidelines that we worked on in connection with the small area plan. And it was a good discussion. That'll come up. We'll review them again at an upcoming planning commission meeting. Then after that meeting, we'll probably have a public hearing on these items. Also, in relation to that, we were going to discuss impervious surface. We discussed that a few months ago. That has been tabled. Engineering is still working on it. You know, there's just a lot of things. There are more balls than average up in the air in everyone's life right now. And I think that engineering has a lot going on, and they're going to they weren't ready to comment on our timeline for tonight's meeting. So we took that off the agenda. That'll be covered at later this year. Engineering has the bandwidth available to look at that a little bit more in detail. Also, following up on Jerry's question regarding the Lorient 4500, we've been asked to look into parking requirements, and we've been asked citywide. We've talked about it. Do we have the right parking requirements for around the city? We've been asked to look into that. We'll start looking at that. That's a big project. I suspect that there's some adjacent issues to that. You start addressing parking. Once you deal with, let's say you reduce parking, you're touching on other issues regarding transit, multimodal, traffic demand management, all sorts of things. So, and we're going to probably need some input and some information that we don't have. So we're probably going to be kicking this off relatively soon, but we've been asked to look into, just to put it on as a bonus item. Do we have are our parking ordinances correct for 2020? And so that's going to be a sizable piece of work for us. Let's see, I had one other thing. We continue to matter tonight regarding a subdivision because engineering wanted to had further comments regarding some of the water flow and drainage on that. And I just wanted to call this out. One thing, we all read the papers, we all pay attention to media, we've all been members of the planning commission, we get feedback, and you always hear the city or the government doesn't do something right, and you hear when something doesn't get done right. And, or you hear when something is fixed, when someone heroically solves something. But what you never hear is when someone just deals with something or as part of their job. So you never hear of the hero that solves a problem before it ever becomes known to be a problem, that prevents it from becoming a problem. Now, many of us have heard about there was a stormwater issue several years ago, and it's been thrown back to us many times. People say, well, there was that mistake several years ago about stormwater. Are you doing it right now? Well, I think that the fact that engineering is taking a deeper look into these issues is just shows something that it's like something we don't see beneath the surface, where people in the engineering department, other departments in the city they're learning and improving and making changes, and you don't always see every improvement because you only see it when something doesn't work right. And sometimes we should recognize the absence of having problems over 7 years shows that things are working right, and there's going to continue to be problems. But I think that I just wanted to call out the recognition that there are processes that didn't exist several years ago, and they are catching things before they become problems, and you just never see the problem. And so we only hear about the problem, but I want us to take time and think about all the problems that we don't see and how someone actually worked to prevent that and to save that from being a problem. So okay, soapbox over. That was my final comment. Does anyone else have anything else, or else we can go on to staff comments? Staff comments.
Nothing to add. That was the big action that the council recently took, was the 4,500 project. So that's it for me.
The next item on our agenda is adjournment, and we'll need a motion, a second, and a roll call vote to adjourn. Chris, would you like to make this motion?
Move to adjourn the meeting.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Liz, could you do a roll, please?
Thanks, Chairman Rob. Commissioner Douglas.
Aye.
Commissioner Agnew.
Aye.
Commissioner Bennett.
Aye.
Commissioner Olson.
Aye.
Commissioner Strauss.
Aye.
Commissioner Berube.
Aye.
Chair Nemrov.
I actually forgot one thing. So before I say aye and we close, I forgot one thing. Chris Douglas, thank you for your service. You jumped on. You had a tremendous. You just took like a duck to water to this, even though it wasn't your profession. It's been great working with you. I'm sorry you're leaving. I'm sure it's good for you, and I just want to wish you well, and I'm sure everybody else does also.
Thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate and I'm humbled working with all of you. You are an amazing group, and you are one of the reasons why Edina is such a fantastic place to live. So thank you.
And with that, I say aye, and that adjourns the meeting.